Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Alex here. We have an amazing story again here on the channel that you guys suggested me to see. We have 6 Filipino pilots versus 54 airplanes from China, if I understood correctly. Not sure of that, but I'm gonna try to understand more in the documentary itself. You guys send this to me after you saw that I had on the channel some history about the Philippines, not only with the White Russians that Philippines welcomed them, but what happened with the battle for Korea. That was mind-blowing. 900 Philippines versus 40,000. If you didn't saw that, I'm gonna leave it at the end of the video, the card. You should watch that. And yeah, okay, let's enough talking. If you're new on the channel, welcome. Like the video, subscribe, of course. Let me know what you think down below. More links down below that you guys think that we should see together over here. They are more than welcome. And let's go and check this out, because we're talking about December 10th, December 1941.
December 10th, 1941, Zablon Airfield, Philippines. Captain Jesús Villamor climbed into the cockpit of his Boeing P-26 pea shooter. The plane was already obsolete when it was built in 1932. Open cockpit, fixed landing gear, top speed 160 miles per hour. Ahead of him in the sky, 54 Japanese aircraft, modern, lethal, Zeros that could fly 350 miles per hour. Nell bombers armed with cannons. The American ground crew watching thought they were witnessing a suicide mission. 6 Filipino pilots in museum pieces against the most advanced fighter planes in the Pacific. But Jesús...
Whoa, okay. Now this is getting really interesting. It's like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, I don't know, a scooter next to a Ferrari, something like that, you know, and try to race. Jesus.
Villamor had already started his engine. He had a different opinion about what was possible. 8 hours earlier, Pearl Harbor had been destroyed. Yeah. The Japanese were now hitting the Philippines. Clark Air Base was in flames. Nichols Field was under attack. The entire American defensive plan in the Pacific was collapsing, and 6 Filipino pilots in ancient biplanes were about to do something that would shock the United States military and make Jesús Villamor the only Filipino in history to receive America's second highest combat medal twice in 3 days. This is the story of David versus Goliath in the sky, of impossible courage meeting impossible odds, of why the Distinguished Service Cross was created for exactly this kind of heroism, and how one Filipino pilot proved that sometimes the plane doesn't matter as much as the man flying it. Jesús Villamor wasn't supposed to be a fighter pilot. He was supposed to be a businessman. Born in 1914 in Bangued, Abra, his father was an associate justice of the Philippine Supreme Court. Villamor studied commerce at De La Salle College in Manila. Business career, comfortable life, safe future. But in 1936, something changed. The Philippine Commonwealth had just created the Philippine Army Air Corps. They needed pilots. Villamor applied. He was 25 years old. He'd never flown a plane in his life, but he had something the recruiters recognized: determination, fearlessness, the kind of person who doesn't calculate odds before deciding what's right. The Philippine Army Air Corps was desperate. They had a handful of planes and almost no trained pilots. The defense plan for the Philippines assumed American air superiority, modern fighters, experienced pilots. But reality was different. By 1941, the Philippine Army Air Corps had 12 operational Boeing P-26 pea shooters. 12. That was the entire fighter force defending the southern approaches to Manila. The P-26 pea shooter got its name from the tubular gun sight that looked like a toy pea shooter. But the nickname was appropriate for another reason. The plane's armament was pathetic. 2 30 caliber machine guns. That's it. The Zeros had two 20mm cannons plus 2 machine guns, 4 times the firepower. And the Zeros could fly twice as fast. Think about what that means in a dogfight. The Zero pilot can choose when to engage and when to break off. The P-26 pilot has no choice. He's too slow to run, too slow to catch up, too slow to escape. His only option is to fight at close range where his weaker guns might have a chance. Close range means the enemy's superior firepower is pointed directly at you. It's not a fair fight. It's not even close to fair. But Jesus Villamor had been promoted to captain and given command of the 6th Pursuit Squadron. 12 P-26s, 12 pilots, defending all of southern Luzon. When the call came on December 8th that Pearl Harbor had been hit, Villamor knew the Philippines would be next. He ordered his squadron to prepare for combat. Some of his pilots had less than a year of flying experience. None of them had ever seen combat. They were about to face the most experienced naval aviators in the Pacific. December 10th, 1941, 2 days after Pearl Harbor, Villamor received word that a massive Japanese formation was heading toward Batangas. The report said 54 aircraft, bombers and fighters. The entire squadron scrambled, 3 P-26s led by Villamor against 54 Japanese. Villamor climbed to altitude. Even climbing, the P-26 struggled, its 600 horsepower engine wheezing compared to the Zero's 1,000 horsepower monsters. He could see them coming, a swarm of aircraft, so many the sky looked dark with them. The Japanese pilots probably couldn't believe what they were seeing. 3 ancient biplanes climbing to meet them. It must have seemed like a joke. The Japanese formation split. The Zeros moved to engage. These weren't rookie pilots. These were veterans from the war in China, experienced in killing, confident in their equipment. They'd been told American and Filipino resistance would collapse immediately. So far, they'd been right. Villamor didn't hesitate. He led his flight directly into the formation. The tactics were insane, but necessary. At long range, the Zeros would tear them apart. The only chance was to get close. So close the Japanese couldn't use their speed advantage. So close it became a knife fight instead of a shooting gallery. A Zero latched onto Villamor's tail. The Japanese pilot was good. Every time Villamor turned, the Zero stayed with him. The P-26's controls felt sluggish compared to the Zero's incredible maneuverability. Villamor tried everything. Tight turns, sudden climbs, diving attacks. The Zero matched every move. The Japanese pilot was probably savoring the kill, taking his time. This antique biplane couldn't possibly escape. Villamor dove toward the ground. The Zero followed. They screamed toward the earth at full speed. The Zero was faster, closing the distance. Villamor pulled back on the stick at the last possible second, leveling off just above the treetops of the Marikina Valley. The Japanese pilot followed, confident in his superior aircraft. Then Villamor did something the Japanese pilot didn't expect. He dove even lower, under a row of high-tension electrical wires. The massive power lines hung across the valley like a deadly web. The Japanese pilot had a split-second decision: follow through those wires in a faster, less maneuverable plane, or pull up. He pulled up. Villamor shot through underneath, climbed on the other side, and was gone. The Japanese pilot circled, looking for him. Villamor had vanished into the terrain. That's when the Japanese pilot realized this Filipino wasn't a rookie. He was a hunter who knew every inch of this land.
Villamor's wingmen were in their own desperate fights. Lieutenant Godofredo Giuliano and Antonio Mondigo were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought with the same fearless aggression, close range, point-blank shooting, using the terrain. The Japanese had superior equipment, but the Filipinos had something else. They were defending their home. They knew these skies, they knew these valleys, and they absolutely refused to run. When the smoke cleared, the impossible had happened. Villamor's tiny flight of 3 P-26s had broken up the Japanese attack. They damaged several aircraft, forced the bombers to scatter. The Batangas airfield was saved. Villamor landed with his pea-shooter riddled with bullet holes, but still flying. The ground crew counted the hits, over 30 bullet strikes. Any one could have killed him. His plane should have been scrap metal in the air. General Basilio Valdez, the Philippine Army Chief of Staff, was waiting when Villamor climbed out. He asked if Villamor had been afraid the whole time. Villamor said yes, absolutely terrified. But fear and duty aren't opposites. You can be afraid and still do what needs to be done. That's not the absence of fear, that's courage. The United States Army didn't waste time. Villamor's actions on December 10th earned him the Distinguished Service Cross, America's second highest award for combat valor, after the Medal of Honor. The citation read, "Extraordinary heroism, courage, and leadership at great personal hazard, unquestionable valor," leading 3 pursuit planes against attacking Japanese planes while serving as pilot of a P-26 fighter airplane. Most pilots would consider one Distinguished Service Cross the achievement of a lifetime. Villamor got his first on December 10th. He earned his second one 2 days later. December 12, 1941. Villamor had moved his squadron to Batangas airfield to escape the advancing Japanese forces. Around noon, radar picked up another massive formation heading their way, 27 bombers, 17 fighters. The Japanese were coming back to finish what they'd started. Villamor scrambled 6 P-26s this time, 6 against 44, slightly.
Okay, let's breathe a little bit, because this is like those TV shows that, you know, every episode is like finished with the cliffhanger, and oh my God. Did you know about this? I'm talking to you guys out there. Maybe a lot of you, yes, maybe some of you didn't, you know, and you're like me right now. This is the beauty of history, see? This is the beauty of history, the beauty of sharing, and especially there is something, like I always said, with Philippines, with the courage, with the people, with the heart. How can you like even imagine to go with those kind of planes against 54? And I don't know what's going to happen now. So, man, wow.
Better odds, but still suicidal. One of his pilots was Lieutenant Cesar Bassa, flying as Villamor's wingman. Bassa had been on a reconnaissance mission when he heard the scramble order over the radio. He turned back and joined the formation. He knew what they were flying into. He came anyway. They climbed to meet the Japanese formation. The Zeros saw them coming and moved to intercept. This time there was no surprise, no confusion. The Japanese pilots knew exactly what they were facing: ancient biplanes, easy kills. The Japanese pilots probably discussed among themselves who would get which target: sports shooting. Villamor led his flight straight into the bomber formation, ignoring the Zeros, going for the high-value targets. The Mitsubishi G3M Nell bombers were the threat, armed with cannons and bombs. The Zeros were dangerous, but the bombers would destroy Batangas airfield. Villamor needed to break up that bomber formation. The lead Japanese bomber loomed in his gun sight. Villamor opened fire. His 2 30-caliber machine guns chattered, tracers reaching out. At this range, against a bomber, even the P-26's weak guns could do damage. The Nell's cockpit shattered. The bomber started smoking. Villamor held his fire until the last second, watching to confirm. The Nell nosed down, uncontrolled. Villamor had just scored his second kill in 3 days.
Then the Zeros hit them.
They came from above, diving with tremendous speed. The Filipino formation scattered, each pilot fighting for survival. Cesar Bassa found himself in a turning fight with a Zero. He was outmatched, but he was brave. He tried to get guns on target. The Zero was faster, more maneuverable, better armed. The B-26 shuddered under the impact of 20mm cannon fire. Villamor heard the radio call, saw Bassa's plane trailing smoke, watched it fall. Cesar Bassa never made it out. He was 25 years old, one of Villamor's best pilots, a friend. The scream of bullets, of the Zero's tracers chewing into the thin metal skin of Bassa's B-26 would haunt Villamor for the rest of his life. But the mission wasn't over. The other Filipino pilots pressed their attacks. They shot down a second bomber, damaged several Zeros, forced the entire Japanese formation to break off their bombing run prematurely. Batangas Airfield was saved again, at the cost of Filipino blood, at the cost of Cesar Bassa's life, but saved. When Villamor landed, his hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage and grief. He'd lost a pilot, a friend, but he'd also done what seemed impossible twice in 72 hours. 6 Filipino pilots in obsolete planes had turned back 44 modern Japanese aircraft. The Japanese had expected easy victories. They got a fight they'd remember. The United States Army awarded Villamor a bronze oak leaf cluster, the symbol for a second Distinguished Service Cross. The citation for December 12th read, Captain Villamor led 6 pursuit planes against 54 Japanese bombers, and an enemy plane was destroyed by fire from Captain Villamor's plane. Jesus Villamor became the only Filipino in history to receive the Distinguished Service Cross, twice. Think about what that means. The DSC isn't given for showing up. It's not given for doing your job. It's given for extraordinary heroism in combat, for actions so far beyond the call of duty that they need special recognition. Villamor earned it twice in 72 hours, in a plane that was obsolete before the war even started, against the best fighter aircraft in the Pacific. Those aren't just medals, that's validation from the United States military that what he did was legendary. The P-26s fought for 2 more weeks. Every day, fewer came back. By December 24th, they were all gone. Some shot down, some destroyed to prevent capture by advancing Japanese forces. The Japanese had won the air war through overwhelming numbers and superior technology, but they never forgot those first 2 weeks when Filipino pilots in ancient biplanes refused to surrender the sky. General Douglas MacArthur ordered Villamor out of the Philippines in April 1942. By then, the Japanese had a price on his head. He'd become too famous, too valuable as a propaganda symbol. If they captured him, it would be a major victory. MacArthur couldn't allow that. Villamor was evacuated to Australia. But Villamor didn't stay in safety. He volunteered for the Allied Intelligence Bureau. He trained with Australian commandos, learned espionage, sabotage, resistance operations. Then he did something even more dangerous than dogfighting Zeros. He went back to the Philippines.
December 1942. Villamor infiltrated Japanese-occupied Philippines aboard a submarine. He made contact with guerrilla leaders across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. He established direct communication networks between the resistance and MacArthur's headquarters in Australia. He coordinated guerrilla operations against Japanese forces. He gathered intelligence on Japanese ship movements, troop deployments, defensive positions. The Japanese were hunting him. They knew he was back. They wanted him dead or captured. Villamor operated in the shadows, moving constantly, trusting no one outside the resistance. For 3 years, he fought a different kind of war, not in the sky, but on the ground, not with guns, but with information and courage. When American forces returned to the Philippines in 1944, Villamor's intelligence network provided crucial information for the invasion. He'd helped keep the resistance alive, kept hope alive, proved that the Philippines hadn't surrendered, would never surrender. After the war, President Ramon Magsaysay awarded Villamor the Medal of Valor, the Philippines' highest military decoration for bravery, the American Distinguished Service Cross twice, the Philippine Medal of Valor. Jesús Villamor's chest carried the evidence of extraordinary heroism across two different kinds of warfare. He retired from military service, but never stopped serving his country. He became a civic leader, businessman, advocate for veterans. The man who'd flown ancient biplanes against Zeros became an elder statesman, but he never forgot his squadron, never forgot Cesar Basa and the others who didn't come home. Villamor died in 1971 at 56. The Philippine Air Force renamed Nichols Air Base in his honor,
56?
Villamor Air Base. Every pilot who takes off from that airfield flies in the shadow of a legend, a reminder that equipment doesn't determine courage, technology doesn't guarantee victory, that sometimes the man matters more than the machine. The story of Jesús Villamor and his P-26 pea shooters is taught in military academies worldwide. It's a case study in impossible courage, in fighting against overwhelming odds, in refusing to accept defeat just because the numbers say you should lose. American pilots learn about it. Australian pilots study it. Even Japanese military historians acknowledge it as one of the most remarkable defensive stands in the early Pacific War. Here's what makes this story so powerful. Villamor knew the P-26 was obsolete. He knew the Zeros were superior. He knew the odds. He calculated exactly how overmatched he was, and he took off anyway. Not because he thought he'd win, but because someone had to try, because surrender without fighting wasn't an option, because his country needed him, and fear wasn't a good enough reason to stay on the ground. That first dogfight on December 10th, when Villamor escaped the Zero by diving under power lines, that moment defined everything. The Japanese pilot had superior speed, superior firepower, superior maneuverability, every technical advantage, but Villamor had something the Japanese pilot didn't. He knew the terrain. He knew his own limits and his own capabilities. He used creativity and desperation and intimate knowledge of the land to overcome technological superiority. That's the lesson. That's what military strategists study. Not the plane, the pilot. Not the equipment, the person using it. Villamor proved that expertise, courage, and creative thinking can overcome massive disadvantages. Not always, not guaranteed, but possible. And possibility is all a warrior needs. The Boeing P-26 pea shooter sits in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum today, suspended in the air near the SR-71 Blackbird and the Space Shuttle Discovery. It looks small, outdated, almost fragile compared to those technological marvels. Visitors walk past it without a second glance. They don't know what it represents. That little biplane with its open cockpit and fixed landing gear isn't just an obsolete fighter. It's proof that courage doesn't require the latest technology, that determination can overcome disadvantages, that 6 Filipino pilots in museum pieces could stand up to 54 modern Japanese aircraft and win, not because of the plane, because of the men flying them. Jesús Villamor showed the world something important in December 1941. He showed that the impossible is just the difficult that nobody's tried yet, that being outgunned doesn't mean being beaten, that sometimes the underdog has advantages the favorite doesn't see: knowledge, courage, refusal to accept defeat. The United States gave him the Distinguished Service Cross twice. The Philippines gave him the Medal of Valor. But Villamor's real legacy isn't the medals, it's the example. 70 years of Filipino pilots have looked at his story and understood. You don't need the best equipment to be the best warrior. You need the best spirit, the best determination, the best courage.
When that Russian commander watched footage of Filipino soldiers disappearing into the jungle like ghosts, when American SEALs asked Filipino SEALs to teach them jungle warfare, when international military forces recognized Filipino tactical expertise, they were seeing the same thing Jesús Villamor proved in December 1941. Filipinos don't win because they have superior technology. They win because they refuse to lose, because they fight smarter, harder, and braver than the odds suggest they should. Jesús Villamor climbed into an obsolete biplane and fought modern fighters because that's what warriors do. They assess the situation, they accept the odds, and then they fight anyway. Not because victory is guaranteed, because fighting is necessary. That's the Filipino combat spirit that earned international respect. That's why his story matters 80 years later. That's why the Boeing P-26 pea shooter, a plane that should have been a footnote in aviation history, became a symbol of impossible courage. December 10, 1941, 6 Filipinos in ancient planes against 54 Japanese in modern aircraft. The Japanese had every advantage, except the ones that mattered: heart, skill, the absolute refusal to give up. Jesús Villamor proved that day that sometimes the impossible is just what happens when courage meets opportunity. And the United States military recognized it with the only honor that fit, the Distinguished Service Cross, twice, for a Filipino pilot in a museum piece who taught the world that the plane doesn't fly the mission, the pilot does. That's the legacy. That's the lesson. That's why Jesús Villamor's story will be told as long as people value courage over technology, determination over odds, and the warrior spirit over whatever advantages the enemy might have. Because he proved something needed proving, that Filipinos don't need the best equipment to be the best warriors. They just need the chance to fight.
Wow, guys. I'm so speechless right now. I guess this is the most beautiful and sad and, story. I don't even know how to talk anymore. How can you do something like this and pull it off? Man, wow. I don't know out there, maybe a lot of you already know about this story. Maybe some of you don't. I don't know how you feel right now. If I was a Filipino, I will be proud. And I'm so sorry. He died so young, 56. I don't know why. Maybe there are more documentaries about him, but really a lot of respect, man. Wow. I don't think anybody in the whole world, army, whatever they are, did something like this. But it was so beautiful. Thank you guys for sending me this. It was one of the most beautiful stories that there are on the channel, honestly. No, there are no words. Just say respect, and that's it. Really, really. That's why I'm saying in all damn videos that Filipinos have something that nobody in the world has. This is something that nobody, after you see story after story, story after story, you feel this, you hear this, and especially the people that are there in the culture. Anyways, okay, I don't want to make the video too long. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Share the video. This video should be shared. I guess from this video, why there is not a movie out there with this? Oh my God. Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Like I always say, stay safe. Man.